And welcome back to another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sports Podcast editorial, a show where I talk about why I prefer the sports of the 80s and 90s to today. Been asked why I do the show that I do. I gave a reason once before, and I'm going to give you, over the next few shows, reasons why I do the show that I do. I'm going to first tell you the 4 reasons why I do the show that I do, and then I'm going to pick one of the reasons why I do the show. Reason number 1 I do the show because I truly believe that the coaches, the players, the broadcasters, talking hairdos don't have a darn clue as to how to play the games, how to win the games. Second reason why I do the show is the GOAT conversation. Tired of hearing it. Tired of really just debating with people about the topics, because the reality is the majority of the people who have opinions about the GOATs today probably either didn't see the other candidates play, didn't see them play in their elements or out of their elements, and also might have a personal bias against a certain person or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 because they're not American, because they're not, they went to North Carolina, because they just blatantly don't like the person. The third reason why I do the show that I do is everybody is right. Tried to explain this the other day. Actually, I didn't explain. I just sort of left it out there. I'm going to try to explain that one today. And the 4th reason why I do my show is because I enjoy talking about sports that I grew up to watch, that I love to play, and the jockocracy of today, where every sporting network lives and dies by the words that jocks say instead of people who are trained in the business say, bother me. So let's tackle the third one. Everybody is right. You ever notice that when you go to a store and you buy something and the price says $15.99, and then there's tax for certain items, there's tax for non-certain items, and you go to the counter, and then on the package itself it says $9.99, and you say, well, the package says it's $9.99, but the thing on the shelf says it's $15.99, and the person behind the counter is like, well, it's supposed to be $15.99, and then they scan it and it comes out to be $9.99. And they're like, no, that's not right. That's not the right price. Let me call the manager. Manager comes up. Manager's like, hey, it's $15.99. That we forgot to take the price tag off. And then you say to yourself, well, why is that my fault that you didn't take the price tag off? And you debate back and forth for like 5-10 minutes before either A, they let you have it, or B, you end up paying the $15.99. When I grew up, I grew up in a household where mother said X, it was X. Father said X, it was X. Father said to be somewhere, you're there. Mother said be somewhere, you're there. Basically, there was absolutes, it seemed to be like in the world, where right was right, wrong was wrong. No gray area. But people today feel to need to create not only a gray area, but a green area, blue area, orange area, opaque area. There seems to be a desire to just always have something to say, no matter what it is. No matter if common sense says don't do something and you do it, you seem to have an answer for why you did it all the time, whether the answer is smart, whether the answer isn't smart. You just always have an answer. And you think you're right. And I believe I used this line in one of my shows. I said, the great George Costanza once said, it's not a lie if you believe it. And that's the premise of the sports world, I think, today. That if you believe it, then it's what it is. Which factors into all the topics as to why I do a show about why I prefer the 80s and 90s in sports. Never in my lifetime. Everything is fact checked today. You ever notice that? Politics. I'm watching the news last night, and my man, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, I'm the only person in the history of people running for president where there was not given a Secret Service man. And then CNN right away went and checked it and said, that ain't true. Most candidates don't get Secret Service protection, especially this early in the game. They may get it, a year away from the race, but technically we're not a year away from the race. It's not November 2023, it's September 2023. And the only reason why a specific person got Secret Service protection, which happened to be Barack Obama, was Barack Obama was getting death threats. Now, last evening, somebody got into his speech and got close to him, and they had guns on him. And luckily for him, it was dealt with, and he was all right. But my point simply is, everything today is fact checked. I used to have a friend who used to always, no matter what I said in sports, the announcer could have just said it on television, or I could have said it a millisecond before the announcer said it on television. He would have to go fact check it to see what I was saying was true. Just to be a jerk. Or just because maybe he really wanted to know. Who knows? But everything today isn't fact checked correctly. Because if it was fact checked correctly, for example, and I know I keep harping on it because I'm really sick of them already, but Colorado beat TCU the other week. And everyone kept saying, they still keep saying, that TCU, the team that played in the national championship game the previous year, lost to this Colorado team, and Deion is the talk of the world. And it's not accurate, because the TCU team that played in the championship game had a quarterback who is playing in the NFL now, a running back that's playing in the NFL now, the wide receiver was drafted by the Chargers in the NFL now, the defensive back was the Thorpe winner, which is the award given to the best defensive back in the country. He's playing in the NFL too. In fact, the kid that played quarterback for them last year was the runner-up in the Heisman Trophy, meaning that he was, quote-unquote, the second best player in the country. He didn't play against Colorado. But every week they keep saying it. They keep bringing it up that they beat the team that played in the championship game last year. It's not true. They beat the school, but they didn't beat the team. And then they're going on about Nebraska. Nebraska has not won anything in college football in years. Nebraska used to be this team. Nebraska's history in college football is up there with Michigan's, Notre Dame's, USC's, Alabama. Nebraska has been through it all. Miami. But the last decade, Nebraska has fallen on hard times. They're not getting the California kids like they used to. They're not getting the kids from Florida like they used to. They're not getting the Texas kids like they used to. And therefore, they're not winning like they used to. I don't understand. But then again, they come on TV and they say it to the blue in the face because they're right. They think they're right and they're right. But they're wrong. And that's the sports world we live in today. We live in a sports world where the NBA has to put a mandate to make players play. Because they're right. The teams are right. The teams want to make sure that their players are healthy for the playoffs, for the whole season. So they got to protect their $40 million investments. That's their logic. Whether it's right or not right. But it's right to the team. What's right to you is all that matters. Baseball teams today. Baseball teams right now are all trying to figure out how to finish their seasons. There are what? 14 teams getting into the playoffs. So the other 17 teams, 16 teams are going to be home watching the playoffs on TV. And those teams that aren't making it to the playoffs are now in a situation where they got choices to make. Do they let certain players get that bonus of getting those extra innings in, of getting those at bats? So like if they do hit 50 home runs, they get that bonus in. Do they play the kids? Do they not play the kids? Do they bring the kids up? Because that's right. Every debate about sports, people have their opinions and they stick with their opinions. They don't care. Things we do in society today, right or wrong, we think we're always right. I don't want to use the sad example, but sad example, of course, is these young men and women in the African American community who decide they're going to not obey the law and the police shoot them because they tried to hit them with their cars, because they tried to speed away, because they were physically violent, because they were verbally violent. Whatever the reasoning, they think they're right. Steroids in the 80s and 90s was huge. But they also took other drugs too, and all the leagues voted against it to get them out. Back in the 80s and 90s, they used to take money to play college football, to go play college basketball, to go play baseball, which was illegal. But they did it because they felt they were right, even though it was wrong. Today, now it's legal. Today, it's legal to get broken off, to go play sports somewhere. It's part of the whole recruiting process now. The coach may not like what you got to say, but behind the scenes, there's some finance going on because they think they're right. To me, the biggest people who think they're right all the time are people who discuss the topics of who's the greatest to do this and the greatest to do that, who just discuss topics of politics and policy in this country. We used to know what was right and what was wrong for us. We don't know what's right and what's wrong for us now. I take surveys every day. And one of the questions it keeps asking is this country on the right track? And I always say no. And the reason why I always say no is I feel that we lack leadership. But we can't have leadership in any entity, politics, sports, our homes, because everything these days seems to be you need 65 opinions to get one answer. You can't get the same answer. You can't get people to agree to the same things anymore. And those that do, people call them trumpets. All the people who support Donald Trump believe that he was cheated out of the election because not everybody's ballot was in on time by the normal November 4th date. Well, somebody made a law that says that was okay. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has an answer, even though the answer was Joe Biden won. Not according to the people that voted for Donald Trump. I also think that it leads to why they don't know how to play the games well in sports. Because you have teams that have offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and the head coach. And the head coach is the person who's supposed to have the final say. Well, then you watch a game like I was just watching, and all Florida State has to do is run the ball to run the clock down, and they're throwing passes. And you're like, what are you doing? And after the game, the coach will say, well, we won the game. What's his face? Boston College had 4th down and 2. They needed 2 scores. Should have kicked a field goal, played good defense, got the ball back and tried to score. They decided to go for it, and they scored a touchdown. The announcers were like, what are you doing? But it worked because everybody's right. I could keep going on and give you more and more examples of things. But the bottom line is, we like a society where people can debate. Nobody has no problem with debating. But there should be a society that we live in where if you're wrong, admit you're wrong.